I mean, really, it's just missing the Ninos, isn't it? Alright, so this is just a follow-up video on, some people asked me to just single out the ST1300 because I've done some videos on these bikes before. And so yeah, it's an ex-police bike. I've had to do a couple of little piddly jobs to it. And I'll explain all that, you know, kind of what to look for and, you know, what's good and possibly what's bad about them when you buy them. There isn't many things bad, but yeah, it's an ex-police bike and it's white. Maybe I need one of them, you know, white modular lids with the microphone. Should I do that? No, let's not do that. Alrighty then. So this is a 2006 Honda ST1300 pan-European. Say that after a few beers. Ex-police bike, like I've said. I bought this from a nice gentleman who was actually a serving police officer, and he bought this bike from the police shortly after. You know, the bikes developed that, the STs developed that weave, didn't they? That horrible weave that nobody liked. A couple of people got injured and a couple of people got killed. Very sad. And it was up for 4,500. And at the time I was riding the 1100 pan, and felt like I just wanted the 13. Obviously my background has come from all types of bikes. Previous bike was a ZZR 1400, which I just didn't like. Great bike, just didn't like it, couldn't get on with it. So this is a 2006, it's got 31,000 miles on it, it's got full police history. Every nut and bolt was, you know, done and dusted and looked after, and if it needed it, it got it. If it didn't need it, it got it. And it's had a good life. It's pretty much, between the last few MOTs, not really moved a lot. It's just been kind of sitting in the guy's garage, and then he just got to the point where he thought, actually, it's a bit of a waste. It's too big and too heavy to be moving it around, so I'll sell it. And he did, and he sold it to me, and I've been happy ever since. However, there's a couple of little things that I needed to do. I mentioned this before in previous videos. The forks, the front forks, what happens is when they start pitting, they pit and they tear the fork seal. So what happens is people, they will, you know, feel the leak, the oil on the fork leg, and think it's just the seal. They get the seal replaced, and then a couple of days later it's losing oil again out the fork leg. We're going through, yeah, whatever, will squeeze through there, and yeah, so it tears the fork seal. So if you get one of these, it's worth getting the forks checked properly. You know, I mean, it's an expensive job. You know, it can be a couple of £100 to get it boxed off, but it's well worth doing. Otherwise, you're just repeatedly putting seals in, and it costs you a fucking fortune to do it. Secondly, something to look out for is tyres as well, because these are not tearing round the lanes bikes. They don't spend a lot of time on the outside of the tyre, obviously, because it's a sports tourer and it's a pan. They're generally not ridden like that, you know. So square tyres are a thing. That's something you need to be conscious of. I mean, it will go round the corners nice and low if you want, but you haven't got that much ground clearance, to be fair. A little bit of gravel and shit in the road there, so let's watch what we're doing. There's also a simple rule when it comes to Honda pans, and that is, like most things when it comes to bikes, if they're looked after and they're serviced, the thing will last you a lifetime. It'll run till the end of time, you know. It's that straightforward. But these bikes, like I've said in a previous video before, which I'll leave a link down below, of is this Honda's worst mistake? You know, they made these bikes and they made them that perfect that people bought them once, never really changed them, and just run them until they eventually possibly died. and some of these things are 200,000 miles in and still going. My ST1300 had 72,000 miles on it and is still going strong, pulls like a fucking train, handles like a dream. What more do you want out of a bike? So how do you go about buying a police bike? Well, there are police auctions that you can go to. You can find all that online. But this, like I say, this was just a private sale. The guy had bought it from the police. I think it was South Yorkshire Police that he bought it from. He bought it from South Yorkshire Police, put it away, forgot all about it, and now it's mine. I instantly changed the tyres because they were square as hell. There was plenty of tread on them, but they were really square. Like, you'd go into a corner and the bike would kind of go whoop and kind of tip off the edge of a tabletop, and I didn't like that, because believe it or not, I still, even though I'm riding this, you know, what is technically a bit of a pensioner bike. Why are you braking, sir? It's a bit of a pensioner's bike, if you like. I still like to get a bit of a lick on when I can, and you can do that on this bike. It's just that it's a comfortable lick. Is that a thing? Comfortable lick? And it will tonk along if you want it to. The thing with the ST1300 is it's not a slow bike. I've said it before, people think that they're these slow moped type, you know, pensioner mobiles, and they're not. These things will whip along quite happily. So yeah, there's a few things that you need to be looking at when you're buying one of these. Kind of like the top few things that kind of go wrong with them. The electric screen. What happens is the motor collapses on one side. There's a little joint inside there that snaps. There's also a bit of a wiring fault that can develop. It's kind of one or the other, and one side of the screen will raise and the other one won't, and that is a bit of a pain in the arse, and it can be expensive to fix. I tend not to move the screen too much, to be honest. I do usually wear earplugs when I'm riding as well, so I tend not to need, you know, to have it in its fully upright position. But this one works just fine. Let's put the screen up. See, the wind kind of just completely disappears at that point, which is kind of nice. I have ordered a secondary screen for it, which is the Puig, or the Pug, Pyage, however you want to pronounce it. I've ordered that screen anyway, and it's a dark tinted one, and it's got extra wind dispersal in this corner of the screen. So we'll see what that's like when that turns up. I've had good reviews on it that it's good. Fork legs, which I've discussed before. Rear shock as well is another thing. The oil tends to go out of the preload adjuster, and you lose all kind of dampening at the rear end, but that's actually not a big job to do. Yeah, there's plenty of videos out there that'll show you how to do that job. It's not long, probably about an hour of your time to be able to do it. Couple of bolts, take the preload adjuster off, clean it out a little bit, put some more oil in it, put it back on, job done. They're usually well looked after, these bikes, you know, like I say, 9 times out of 10 these things have been kind of loved and cherished, you know, and they've had owners that are a little bit more grown up, if you like. Yeah, there's a couple of different types of owners that have these. You get the guy that buys one of these and just goes to work on it, doesn't wash it, doesn't care, still loves it though, gets it serviced, and it'll still run forever and ever. And then you get the people that buy them and just absolutely polish them to death, nut and bolts are all crystal clean, and they're well looked after, which is what this one is. So let's talk about the weave, let's talk about the dreaded death weave. That was obviously something that developed when these bikes were overweight at the top box end. The side panniers seem to be not weren't really the root of the problem. What was the problem is that how much weight was in the top box, because I think there was a secondary battery on some of these bikes as well, because of you know, extra lights and radios and whatever else that they had to run. So I think that didn't help, plus the ride, that it was just developing this thing that would kind of make the bike do this, and consequently it was chucking people off, it was chucking riders off, which is why the police then started to use the BMW. These roads are nice. I'm just trying to stay out of the main road, so I don't have to think too much while I'm riding. So what are the prices on the ST1300? Well, like I said, they vary because they vary in owners. Different types of owners will then dictate the price, because the guy that buys one of these doesn't really wash it, just goes to work on it, does his thing, and that's it. You know, you're probably looking at maybe $2.5 grand for one that looks a little bit shitty, that you could probably clean up. As long as it's got good service history, you're probably onto a bit of a winner with something that cheap, to be fair. And then you've got what you would term as the higher end. I mean, this, I think at $4.5 grand is probably kind of mid-range, I think, because then you've got the real later models that are going to cost you, you know, 7, 8.5 grand, you know, for a real up-to-date one that's absolutely pristine. The question is, am I going to have this bike forever? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to have it forever, to be fair. I don't know if it's going to be, you know, the bike that I run till the end of time. I've had a brief moment where I've been looking at the BMW GS 1250. Not really a massive BMW fan, but the reason that I've been looking at the adventure bike thing is because my right hip is absolutely fucked, for want of a better word. It's absolutely shagged. It's not in a good way, my right hip. Don't know why it is. I'm getting some physiotherapy and stuff like that, and I think the longer reach bike, you know, the taller bike, actually helps to kind of stretch my hip out. Now I really do sound like a fucking pensioner, don't I? Jesus Christ. But I've actually ordered a new seat for this bike as well from a place in France, Top Celery. They don't sell celery, they actually sell seats. So yeah, I've paid for 300 and odd quid plus the import, thanks Brexit. Extra pads in the seat. I think it makes it slightly wider, so it's a bit easier on the hips as well. It was recommended to me by somebody on one of the Pan forums, so we'll see how that goes, see how that shapes up. Now, the Honda Pan gets a little bit of a bad rep by people that usually don't ride them or have never ridden one. That's kind of how it goes, and it's a shame that people don't get it. They don't understand that, you know, this bike is, and again, like I've said before, this is the type of bike that you can just get on and just go anywhere you want, and it'll whip along quite happily at whatever speed, you know, slow and cumbersome, nice and casual. Or if you want to get a bit of a lick on, then you can do that. It's not going to stop you. You're not ragging it to death. You know, engines, especially when they're 1300cc, they want to be worked. They want to be worked hard. So, you know, get one and work it hard. Work it, baby. Work it hard. Ah, yeah. Yeah, because you know, Honda Pans, they're slow, aren't they? No, they're not. Alright, as always, listen, I appreciate you watching. Thanks for popping along. If you want to hit subscribe and do all that stuff, you can do that. That would be great.